The champagne flute shattered against the terracotta tiles like a gunshot in the quiet kitchen, shards scattering like the fragile illusions of the afternoon. "You think this is love?" Lyric hissed, her voice a raw whisper that cut deeper than any scream, eyes locked on the woman whose lips still tasted of stolen kisses and lies. In that suspended heartbeat, as the scent of orange blossoms choked the air, Lyric realized she'd just upended not just a glass, but the entire wedding she'd come to celebrate, or survive. The bridal shower sprawled across the sun-drenched villa in Seville's Triana neighborhood, a labyrinth of whitewashed walls and wrought-iron balconies that screamed old-world charm. It was the kind of place Americans like Tessa, Lyric's college roommate turned reluctant expat, dreamed of when they fled New York's grind for authenticity. Tessa was getting hitched to Javier, a local artist with a smile that could melt Moorish stone and a family villa that hosted half the neighborhood's fiestas. Lyric had flown in from Brooklyn 2 days early, suitcase stuffed with New York bagels and a heart armored against the inevitable pitying glances. At 28, with her cropped auburn curls and freckles that made her look perpetually like a wide-eyed tourist, she was the token single, the cool aunt figure no one quite knew how to place. And yeah, the only out lesbian in a sea of straight women cooing over lace veils and monogrammed towels. The afternoon had started with mimosas on the patio, laughter bubbling like the fountain in the courtyard. Tessa, radiant in a flowy linen dress, her blonde bob bouncing as she unwrapped gifts, kept shooting Lyric those loaded looks, the ones that said, "See, this could be you someday." As if marriage to a man was the universal band-aid for a broken heart. Lyric sipped her drink, nodding along to stories of Javier's charm, his surprise proposals under the Alcazar stars. But beneath the fizz, doubt gnawed at her. Tessa had confided once, over late-night sangria, about Javier's wandering eye during his gallery openings. Artists, you know, she'd laughed it off. Lyric hadn't pushed. Friends don't pry when the fairy tale's in motion. By 3 o'clock, the heat had driven the party indoors, women fanning themselves with embossed invitations, clustering around trays of jamon iberico and patatas bravas. Lyric slipped away for a refill, weaving through the chatter to the villa's heart, the kitchen, a cavernous space of exposed beams and copper pots that hummed with the ghosts of abuela recipes. She was midway to the fridge when she heard it, a low murmur, intimate and urgent, from behind the pantry door. Curiosity, that old Brooklyn vice, pulled her closer. The door was ajar, just enough for a sliver of shadow and silk. And there, pressed against the spice rack, was Madeline. God, Madeline. Tall, with waves of black hair cascading like midnight over her shoulders, olive skin glowing under the afternoon light slanting through a high window. She was 29, Lyric would learn later, with green eyes sharp as emeralds and a laugh that could disarm a room, or a heart. But right now, those eyes were wide, her fitted blue blouse rumpled, lips parted in a gasp as Javier's hands roamed her waist. He murmured something in Spanish, too low to catch, but the tone was honeyed poison. Madeline pushed him away gently, whispering, "Not here, Javi. Tessa's right outside." The world tilted. Lyric's grip tightened on her empty flute until it cracked. Javier, the groom, the prince of this Andalusian dream, had a secret. And it wasn't some abstract flirtation, it was this woman, tangled in his arms like she belonged there. Rage surged, hot and unbidden, propelling Lyric forward. She yanked the door wide, the hinges creaking like an accusation. The flute slipped from her fingers, exploding on the floor. Javier spun, face paling to the shade of manchego rind. Madeline froze, her hand still on his chest, as if caught mid-push or mid-pull. "Lyric." Javier stammered, his accent thickening with panic. "It's not." "Save it," Lyric snapped, her voice steady despite the storm inside. She turned to Madeline, who looked like she'd been slapped, beautiful, broken, real. "And you? Hiding in pantries like a bad rom-com plot. Does Tessa know her fairy tale comes with a side of betrayal?" Madeline's eyes flashed, not with guilt, but something fiercer, defiance laced with pain. "You don't know the half of it," she said, her American twang cutting through the tension like a lifeline. She was from Chicago, Lyric would discover, a photographer who'd chased light to Seville 6 months ago. But in that moment, she was just a stranger in a stolen moment, and Lyric hated how her pulse quickened at the sight of her. Javier bolted, muttering excuses about checking the grill, leaving the two women amid the wreckage of glass and garlic peels. Silence stretched, thick as the summer air. Madeline knelt to gather shards, her movements graceful even in defeat. "I'm not his girlfriend," she said finally, voice soft but sure. "Not like that. It's complicated." Lyric crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe to steady herself. "Complicated how?" "You're in his kitchen, his hands on you, 5 hours before his bride-to-be opens lingerie from her future mother-in-law. That's not tapas, that's treason." Madeline rose, shards glinting in her palm like fallen stars. She dumped them in the sink, then met Lyric's gaze head-on. "He came to me last night. Said he was scared, that marriage feels like a cage. I told him to talk to Tessa, but he kissed me. And I let him, for a second, because I'm an idiot who believes in second chances. But it's over. It was always a mistake." The confession hung there, vulnerable and raw. Lyric wanted to scream, to storm out and drag Tessa away from this powder keg of a wedding. But Madeline's eyes, those damn green eyes, held her fast, mirroring the ache Lyric knew too well from her own string of heartbreaks. The ex who ghosted after Pride, the one-night stand that bloomed into unrequited longing. "Why should I believe you?" Lyric asked, softer now, the fight ebbing like tide. "Because I'm looking at you like you're the first honest thing I've seen all week," Madeline replied, a ghost of a smile tugging her lips. It was disarming, that honesty, slicing through Lyric's defenses. They stood there, the kitchen a cocoon of scents, rosemary, regret, possibility, until distant laughter from the patio shattered the spell. "Help me clean this up?" Madeline asked, holding out a dustpan. Lyric took it, their fingers brushing, electric as a storm over the Guadalquivir. It was the start of something neither could name, born in breakage. The rest of the shower blurred into a haze of forced smiles and clinking glasses. Lyric played her part, the witty bridesmaid toasting Tessa's glow, deflecting questions about her mysterious love life with quips about Brooklyn's dating scene being all apps and no spark. But her eyes kept drifting to Madeline, who arrived fashionably late as Javier's cousin's friend from the States, her presence a ripple in the room. She blended seamlessly, charming Tessa's TIAs with tales of Chicago winters, but Lyric caught the glances, Javier's lingering too long, Tessa's oblivious joy. By evening, as the sun dipped behind the Giralda spire, the party wound down with a flamenco playlist and bottles of Rioja. Lyric found herself on the balcony with Madeline, the city unfolding below like a tapestry of amber lights. "You didn't rat me out," Madeline said, swirling her wine. "Why?" "Because Tessa deserves the truth on her terms," Lyric replied, staring at the horizon where river met sky. "And because I know what it's like to be the secret." Madeline leaned on the railing, her profile sharp against the twilight. "Javier and I met at his last exhibit. He was magnetic, charismatic, portrait artist vibe. We talked for hours about light, shadows, the way Seville tricks you into believing in forever. One thing led to another, but it was never serious. Until Tessa. Now it's this mess." She paused, voice dropping. "I ended it last month. But he's like a bad habit." Lyric's chest tightened. "And you? What's your story? Running from Chicago winters or something deeper?" Madeline laughed, a sound like bells over cobblestones. "Both. My ex-fiancé, actually, left me for her yoga instructor. Said I was too intense for domestic bliss. So I packed my Nikon and came here to shoot flamenco dancers and forget. Turns out, forgetting's harder than framing the perfect shot." The vulnerability cracked something in Lyric. She shared then, haltingly, about Elena, the graphic designer who'd promised forever in a Bushwick loft, only to fade into texts from LA with a new girlfriend. "I came here for Tessa, but mostly to remind myself there's life beyond one heartbreak." They talked until stars pricked the indigo sky, words weaving a bridge over the chasm of strangers. Madeline's hand found Lyric's on the railing, tentative, warm. No promises, just presence. When the party finally dispersed, Tessa hugging Lyric goodbye with whispers of bridesmaid duties tomorrow, rehearsal dinner, don't be late, Lyric slipped Madeline her number on a napkin. In case you need a co-conspirator. Madeline's smile was a spark. Or a tour guide to the honest parts of this city. That night, in her rented piso overlooking the river, Lyric lay awake, the napkin crumpled beside her pillow. Seville's bells tolled midnight, a reminder that tomorrow's held weddings, and wreckage. The rehearsal dinner was a candlelit affair in a taberna tucked into Santa Cruz's alleys, where white napkins fluttered like surrender flags and guitarists strummed seguedillas that tugged at hidden heartstrings. Tessa, in a vintage slip dress, floated through the crowd like she owned the night, Javier at her side, his arm possessive around her waist. Lyric watched from a corner table, nursing a vermouth, her eyes scanning for Madeline. She'd arrived early, nerves jangling like the ice in her glass, replaying their balcony confessions. Was it a flirtation born of shared scandal, or something seismic? Madeline slipped in just as the toasts began, her black dress hugging curves like a lover's whisper, hair loose and wild. She caught Lyric's gaze across the room, a nod of solidarity amid the sea of relatives. But tension coiled when Javier pulled her into a hug that lingered a beat too long, his whisper lost in the murmur. Tessa, oblivious, clinked glasses with her future suegra, gushing about honeymoon plans in the Balearics. Lyric's stomach nodded. Complicated, Madeline had said. But seeing it play out felt like swallowing glass. She excused herself to the courtyard, the air thick with jasmine and the faint strum of guitar from inside. Footsteps followed, soft, deliberate. Madeline. Escaping the family lore, she asked, leaning against an archway, moonlight carving shadows on her face. Something like that, Lyric replied, forcing a smile. You. Madeline's expression darkened. Javier cornered me. Wants to talk after the wedding. Clear the air, he says. She scoffed, but her eyes betrayed the pull, the old gravity of what-ifs. Lyric stepped closer, the space between them charged. Don't. He's a black hole, sucking in light until there's none left. Tessa deserves better. You deserve better. Madeline searched her face, then nodded, a decision settling like dust. You're right. I came here to start over, not recycle mistakes. Her hand brushed Lyric's arm, lingering. Walk with me. I need air that doesn't smell like his cologne. They wandered the labyrinthine streets, Seville's magic unfolding in the hush of night, fountains whispering secrets, lanterns glowing like fireflies. Madeline spoke of her photos, the way she chased emotion in frozen frames, a dancer's arched back mid-spin, a child's hand in a grandmother's. It's control, she admitted. Capturing beauty before it slips away. Lyric shared her own art, screen printing posters for queer collectives back home, bold color screaming truths too quiet to voice. It's rebellion, she said. Reminding the world we exist, unapologetic. Their steps synced, stories overlapping like exposures on film. At Plaza de España's edge, they paused by the canal, bridges arched like promises. Madeline turned, her breath visible in the cool air. Last time I felt this scene was before everything went wrong. Lyric's heart hammered. Then let me see you now. She closed the gap, their lips meeting soft as a question, deepening into an answer. It was tentative, then fervent, tongues tracing vulnerabilities, hands mapping shoulders and waists with reverence. No rush, just revelation, the taste of Rioja and resolve, the press of bodies saying stay. They broke apart breathless, foreheads touching. This scares me, Madeline whispered. Me too, Lyric echoed. But running's what got us here. Back at the taberna, the night blurred into dances and dances dodged. Javier's eyes followed Madeline like a shadow, but she stayed glued to Lyric's side, their pinkies linked under the table, a silent vow. Dawn crept in with the wedding day, a blaze of heat that turned the villa into a furnace of anticipation. Tessa was a vision in ivory lace, her veil a cascade of dreams, as guests milled in the courtyard under canopies of bougainvillea. Lyric, in a sage-green sheath that hugged her athletic frame, adjusted her bouquet of wildflowers, the weight of secrets pressing like an ill-fitted corset. Madeline had texted at sunrise, "Meet me in the olive grove after the vows. Need you before the storm." The ceremony was poetry in motion, Javier's vows in halting English, Tessa's tears sparkling like the Guadalquivir at noon. Vows exchanged, rings slipped on with murmurs of siempre, and the crowd erupted in applause, petals raining like confetti from heaven. Lyric clapped, throat tight, her eyes on Madeline in the back row, elegant in coral silk, her smile for the couple masking the turmoil beneath. But as the photographer corralled the bridal party for portraits, chaos cracked the facade. Tessa's phone buzzed on a side table, ignored at first, then insistent. She glanced at it during a lull, her face draining of color. What the? A photo, anonymous sender, Javier and Madeline, mid-kiss in his studio, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. The bouquet slipped from Tessa's hands, thorns pricking her palm unnoticed. Gasps rippled, Javier turned, horror dawning. "Tess, it's not. Save it." Tessa's voice shattered the air, raw and American loud in the genteel hush. She hurled the phone at his feet, screen cracking like Lyric's flute days before. "You bastard. On our weekend." The courtyard froze, TIAs crossing themselves, cousins murmuring in shocked Spanish. Madeline stepped forward, face ashen. "Tessa, it was a mistake. One night, months ago. I ended it." Tessa whirled on her, eyes blazing. "A mistake? While I was planning our life. You're supposed to be a guest, not the goddamn villain in my story." Hurt twisted into fury, and she lunged, not with fists, but words, sharp as Andalusian knives. "Get out. Both of you." Javier reached for her, pleading, but she shoved him away, storming toward the villa, sobs echoing off the walls. Guests scattered like startled birds, whispers swelling to a roar. Lyric moved instinctively to Madeline's side, her arm a shield. "Come on," she murmured. "Not here." They fled to the olive grove bordering the property, ancient trees gnarled as old lovers, their silver leaves whispering judgment. Madeline sank against a trunk, sliding down until she sat in the dust, face buried in her knees. "I ruined it. Everything." Lyric knelt beside her, pulling her close. "No. Javier did. You were honest, eventually." But doubt gnawed. The photo was fresh evidence of lingering ties, a betrayal that echoed too close to Lyric's own scars. Madeline looked up, tears carving tracks through her makeup. "I swear, Lyric. That night. He showed up drunk, confessing doubts. We talked, then. It happened. But I blocked him after. Told him to fix things with her." Her voice broke. "Why does love always twist into this?" Lyric cupped her face, thumbs brushing away salt. "Because we're human. Messy. But that doesn't mean we stop trying." Their kiss then was desperate, a lifeline in the wreckage, lips salty with tears, hands clutching like anchors. It spoke of forgiveness not yet earned, of hope flickering against the blaze of ruin. From the villa, shouts carried on the wind, Tessa's wails, Javier's defenses crumbling into silence. The wedding was off, guests departing in awkward waves, suitcases thumping like heartbeats. Lyric and Madeline stayed hidden until dusk, the grove a sanctuary where words failed and touch sufficed. Twilight bled into the grove, painting the olives in hues of regret and resolve. Lyric and Madeline emerged hand in hand, the villa a ghost of garlands and half-eaten canapés. Tessa sat alone on the patio steps, veil discarded like a shed skin, her dress pooling around her like spilled milk. Javier's car was gone, fled to his atelier, or perhaps the arms of oblivion. Lyric hesitated, but Madeline squeezed her hand. "We owe her this." They approached slow, shadows lengthening. Tessa looked up, eyes red-rimmed but steel-sharp. "You too," she said, voice hoarse. "The irony's not lost on me. My best friend and my almost husband side piece." Madeline flinched but held ground. "Tessa, I'm so sorry. For all of it." Tessa's laugh was bitter, a New York bark softened by Spanish sun. "Sorry doesn't unring the bell. Or unkiss my fiancé." Her gaze shifted to Lyric, softening fractionally. "You knew." "Only yesterday," Lyric admitted, sinking beside her. "In the kitchen. I wanted to tell you, but... timing." Tessa nodded, weary. "Timing's a bitch. I saw the signs, late nights at shows, cologne on his shirts. But love's blind, right? Or stupid." She wiped her face, smearing mascara like war paint. "What now? Call it off, slink back to the States with my tail between my legs." Madeline knelt too, forming a ragged triangle. "Stay. Not for him, for you. Seville's got its own heartbeat. You came here for a fresh start, don't let one asshole rewrite it." Tessa eyed her, the venom ebbing. "Easy for you to say. You're not the jilted one." "But ain't no jilting," Madeline countered gently. "My fiancé left me mid-engagement party. Caterer's still setting up chafing dishes. It hollows you out. But you rebuild, brick by flamenco beat." The words hung, a bridge of shared fracture. Tessa sighed, leaning into Lyric's shoulder. "What would I do without you, lie? My lesbian guardian angel, crashing weddings to save my soul." Lyric chuckled, tension uncoiling. "Someone's gotta keep the drama from turning tragic." They talked late into the night, three women under stars, dissecting betrayals like autopsies on old wounds. Tessa confessed her own doubts, Javier's intensity masking immaturity, her fear of settling in a city that felt more like a movie set than home. Madeline shared her Chicago scars, the way photography became her armor. Lyric wove in Brooklyn tales, of rallies and rents and the quiet ache of invisibility in straight spaces. Laughter crept in, tentative, then full, stories of disastrous dates, cultural faux pas, the absurdity of love's tightrope. By moon high, Tessa stood, brushing dirt from her dress. "Fuck the honeymoon. Girls trip instead. Balearics on me, beaches, no boys." Madeline grinned. "I'm in, if you don't mind a third wheel with a camera." Tessa pulled her into a hug, fierce and forgiving. "Wheels spin best in threes." To Lyric, "And you, don't think I missed that hand-holding." Spill. Lyric blushed, freckles blooming. Later. After sangria. Javier's text lit up Tessa's phone. "Apologies, please, a final take quiero, perdoname." She deleted them one by one, each tap a release. Goodbye, fairy tale. The days that followed were a blur of unwedding, returning dresses, canceling florists, friends rallying with casseroles and condolences. But amid the debris, something bloomed. Lyric and Madeline stole moments, a coffee in Triana's markets, fingers laced over cortados, sunset walks along the river, debating Ansel Adams versus local lensmen. Their connection deepened, not in grand gestures, but quiet truths, Madeline's fear of impermanence, Lyric's guarded heart thawing under green-eyed gaze. One evening, in Madeline's tiny apartment overlooking Plaza de Toros, walls plastered with prints of arched necks and shadowed faces, they cooked paella, fumbling with saffron and shrimp like novices at love. "I keep waiting for the catch," Madeline confessed, stirring rice that stuck to the pan. "The moment you realize I'm just a rebound from scandal." Lyric set down her knife, circling her waist from behind. "Scandal's overrated. You're the exposure I didn't know I needed." She turned Madeline, kissing her slow, deliberate, the kind of kiss that mapped futures, not just lips. They swayed to distant fado from a neighbor's window, bodies sinking like they'd always known the rhythm. Tessa, meanwhile, shed her victim skin. She enrolled in a ceramics class, hands in clay birthing vessels of her own design, cracked but beautiful. Turns out, she told them over tapas one night, I came to Spain for me, not him. The rest was scenery. Betrayal's shadow lingered, though. Javier showed up at the villa a week post-meltdown, eyes hollow, begging a private word with Madeline. Lyric waited outside, pulse thundering, as voices rose behind the door, accusations, alibis, a slammed fist on wood. Madeline emerged, shaken but unbroken. He blamed me. Said I tempted him, that Tessa was too vanilla. She laughed, hollow. As if consent's a camera flash. Lyric pulled her into the car, driving to the coast, Tarifa's windswept beaches, where Atlantic met Mediterranean in eternal argument. They walked barefoot in surf, salt-stinging wounds. You're free, Lyric said, lacing toes with hers. We both are. Madeline stopped, wind whipping her hair. With you, yeah. But what if? No what ifs. Lyric framed her face, echoing their first real talk. Just us. Here. Now. They stayed till dawn, building a bonfire of driftwood and doubts, flames dancing like the flamenco they'd never danced. Tessa joined via video, toasting from her studio, to new chapters. No princes required. Months unfurled like film strips. Tessa's pottery gained a gallery spot, her pieces, jagged hearts mended with gold, selling to tourists hungry for stories. She dated a barista named Sophia, cautious sparks over espressos. Lyric extended her visa, trading freelance gigs for a co-op print shop in the Macarena, silkscreens blooming with queer icons splashed in Seville's golds and blues. Madeline's exhibit, Shadows of Seville, opened to murmurs of Brava, her lens now capturing not just beauty, but belonging, two women under arches, hands entwined, a bride alone but unbroken, clay on her cheeks. Their love wasn't without friction, arguments over Madeline's wanderlust, Lyric's rooted fears, nights when old ghosts whispered not enough. But they faced them head-on, therapy sessions in halting Spanish, letters burned in the grove like rituals. Humanistic in its imperfection, their bond wove through betrayals mended, not erased. On the anniversary of that shattered flute, not the wedding, but the wrecking, they returned to the villa, now Tessa's solo haven. Under orange trees heavy with fruit, picnics spread with what they'd craved, bagels from a Brooklyn import shop, paella from Madeline's perfected recipe, wine from Javier's forgotten cellar, a parting gift, ironic and redeemed. Tessa raised her glass. To the kitchen that started it all. May our secrets always shatter into something better. Lyric and Madeline clinked, eyes locking over rims, promises unspoken, etched in green and freckles. As stars wheeled above, Seville's bells told a new midnight, not of endings, but echoes, love, resilient as terracotta, pieced from shards into holes unforeseen. In the quiet after, Madeline leaned into Lyric, whispering, "You hooked me that day." "Still do." Lyric smiled, pulling her close. "Good. Because this story's just getting started."